Welcome back, Endgame community. I'm Pierre, he's Chris. We're here to talk football for the 2022 season, and we're going to start with some players that you didn't see a whole lot of in 2021, but could be on the way to making a big comeback. Now we're going to decide, are we in or are we still out? Are these players really going to be worth their draft price when it comes time for draft season? So you know what, let's start by talking about a guy that you're seeing already in the playoffs. We didn't think we would see him at all this year, but Cam Akers, I'm ready to jump all the way back in head first. Chris, he looks pretty good so far.
I mean, not going to lie, he's way ahead of where I think anybody thought he would be at this point. I don't think anybody even expected to see him on a football field already. So that alone is incredible. I'm not going to say I'm all the way back in yet because I do worry that his ADP is going to get out of control here. I think we're going to see his ADP start to rise and rise. But the one thing I'm a little cautious about is his cutting ability. So far, we haven't really seen him have to make too many cuts. It's been a lot of straight line stuff, which the speed is there, so that's great. So definitely feel good about him, but I'm a little worried that people are going to get a little too hyped up.
Yeah, so if you looked at our mock draft review, we did label him as one of our worst picks. If you check out our best picks, worst picks, who we thought was, overvalued or undervalued based on where they were taken, Cam Akers, it was just way too soon. As much as I love the guy, I'm not taking him in the second round yet because, well, my concern isn't with the way he is health-wise. I mean, if he's ready to go in the playoffs, and again, we're talking about the game versus Arizona where he looked pretty good, my concern is the volume, and that's what always determines a player at running back, especially a player's fantasy value. So he had 17 carries, I think 55 yards. That's great. But Sonny Michel had 13 carries. What if we see a strict timeshare throughout next season? And don't forget, Michel looked pretty good. He had some really good games for you. There's no reason for any team at this stage, to have just one running back that they focus on, because that guy goes down, they're in trouble. And the Rams, especially, I think they'll probably use a committee. So that's my concern. I think he just might be a little overpriced. As much as I love him, I think I'm going to be out based on where he's probably getting drafted in most leagues. Now, here's another interesting one. Talk about a guy, a rookie who missed his entire season. We haven't seen him on an NFL field. That's Travis Etienne. And the hype is already building somehow because James Robinson, is injured. He's going to miss at least the first part of the season. Are we going to now build up this guy to be too much, especially on a team that was still basically the worst in the league?
I'm not. There's a couple things that worry me about Travis Etienne next year. Number one, coming off Lisfranc injury. That might be a worse injury for a running back than even Achilles, maybe for any player really. And don't forget, last year, Deebo Samuel had this injury and he struggled almost the entire season. Now this year he's finally been healthy and been good, but he struggled that first year back from Lisfranc, and that's usually the case for a lot of players. The second thing is this Jaguars coaching staff, regime, whoever it is, they didn't draft Travis Etienne. Urban Meyer is the one who drafted Travis Etienne in the first round, and he's gone now. So the new staff is going to have no loyalty or any ties to Travis Etienne. They could definitely draft another running back this year or bring in a veteran that they like. So I think right now, a little too crazy people are about Travis Etienne. I'm a little nervous about him. Feel much better about Akers than I do about Etienne at this point.
Exactly. Look, I had some reservations about Etienne coming into this season before he got injured for all those reasons. And so Urban Meyer being gone, I think everybody agrees that's a good thing, right, for Jacksonville's franchise. But like you said, how's he going to be used? Because he was selected, we thought, way too high because Urban Meyer just fell in love with him. He wanted a guy like that who was more of a receiver than a running back. They'll bring in somebody else, right? They'll draft somebody. They'll sign somebody. It won't be Carlos Hyde probably. I just still worry about the fact that A, this team is still going to be really bad, right? B, we don't know who the coach is and how they're going to use Etienne. And then C, we really don't know how Etienne is going to adapt to the pro game. So I don't mind taking him as maybe an RB3, but I guarantee someone will take him before I will as an RB2. So I'm probably going to have 0 shares again heading into next year. J.K. Dobbins, kind of like Akers, second year we thought might be a breakout. Some people were a little too high on him because, well, Baltimore just doesn't feed any running back. Are people going to be way too high on J.K. Dobbins again this year?
I mean, from the mocks that I've been in, it seems like they are, or at least to me it is. I mean, he's pretty much being drafted close to where he was being drafted last year. And last year he wasn't coming off an ACL injury. We know at a minimum, it's probably going to be a slow start for J.K. Dobbins coming back from the ACL. But even last year, I thought he was being overdrafted because, like you said, they don't just give one guy the ball 20 to 25 times. And let's not forget, Gus Edwards, who also tore his ACL, he will be back as well. And the Ravens really like Gus Edwards. And then you got Lamar Jackson, who's also going to take off and run a ton. So I think J.K. Dobbins is okay, but I just think people are drafting him way too high, especially in PPR leagues, for a guy who really doesn't catch any passes.
That's exactly right. I mean, barely caught any passes. And what we saw from him fantasy-wise, his value was a lot of it tied to touchdowns. I think he'll come back. He'll be strong. He'll be an important part of that offense. But I feel like he's also going to be a little overvalued. Now let's get to some receivers. Here's a guy that missed most of the season. We have no idea, honestly, what the situation was with Calvin Ridley. It wasn't an injury. It was mental health related. A lot of talk that, yeah, he'll be back next year, but it might not be with the Falcons. So I got two questions for you, Chris. Is number one, are you willing to take a risk on Calvin Ridley based on what we know right now, which is almost nothing? And does leaving Atlanta help or hurt him?
Well, to answer the first question, yes, I'm willing to take the risk to a degree. I'm not going to draft Calvin Ridley in the second or third round, but if I can get him in the fourth round or later, I'll do that all day. To answer your second question, no, I don't think leaving the Falcons would benefit Calvin Ridley necessarily. Obviously, it depends where he would end up, but to me, the Falcons is the best spot for him for fantasy because we know he's the number one guy there. He's a target monster. We know Matt Ryan will force feed him targets, so I would prefer for fantasy he's in Atlanta, but more than likely if he does leave Atlanta, he's probably going to go to a team that already has a very good wide receiver, which won't be great for his fantasy value. So definitely worth the risk, fourth round or later. Hope he stays in Atlanta. We'll see.
Yeah, I agree with you there, and that's what a lot of people think leaving Atlanta would be good for him. Might not be good for him fantasy-wise because Matt Ryan is still going to be there, and the games he did play this year, 4 out of those 5 games, he saw double-digit targets. Right, he was, like you said, a target hog, and then week 1 was the only time he didn't. He got 8 targets. He was on track to be a wide receiver 1. It was just a bad offense. I get it, right? They're not great, not going to score a lot of touchdowns. That won't change. But again, the volume is what you want to chase, and he might be happier somewhere else. It doesn't mean he'll be more productive. So I'm in on him, like to a degree, right? I'm not going to say that he's going to be the same Calvin Ridley that we expected last year, the year before, but we'll see where he lands up. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens with him this offseason. Now, it is also interesting, Michael Thomas, to see what happens because you never know what's going to happen with Michael Thomas. Is he going to be healthy? Is he going to want to play? Who's going to be the quarterback for New Orleans? I'm just going to say right now, I'm out. I really don't want any part of this. It's just like a headache waiting to happen. But are you in on Michael Thomas for next year?
I'm kind of in. I'm not as in as I am with Calvin Ridley because there are question marks. Well, not only with Michael Thomas, but also with the quarterback for New Orleans because we know it's not going to be Taysom Hill. Jameis Winston coming off ACL, we don't know how that's going to go. Are we looking at Ian Book? Are we looking at Trevor Siemian? Are we looking at a rookie? Are they going to sign a vet? I mean, there's a lot of question marks at quarterback for New Orleans right now, and that's obviously going to impact Michael Thomas. But we know Michael Thomas is such a good player and such a good receiver that I think you have to be willing to take the risk at some point. If he falls far enough in drafts, 5th, 6th round, I think you've got to take the chance that they bring in a halfway decent quarterback and he comes back fully healthy and fully committed. That's the big thing, right? And can put up another monster season. So I'm kind of in on Michael Thomas.
Yeah, I can't. I'm not going to do it. I wasn't that in on him this year. Honestly, but man, I don't, because what worries me is obviously we don't know what's going to happen with the offense and the quarterback there. I think they have to draft a quarterback at this point. I mean, they've got to, right? Jameis Winston thing could have worked out, but you can't trust him coming off ACL surgery. It's not like he was amazing. And then Taysom Hill, is he really the long-term answer? So if they have a rookie quarterback or even whoever they might get, unless they pull off a massive deal for somebody like Deshaun Watson or something, which I doubt, yeah, it's not going to be the same situation for him. He just doesn't seem like a guy who I really want, to put my fantasy fortunes into because there's always something. So, and then a guy who is also technically back, did play a little bit in the wildcard game. That's JuJu Smith-Schuster. Now, talk about him for Pittsburgh. Do you think that he is going to be fantasy relevant again? Because we know Ben Roethlisberger is not going to be there next year. So what happens with him?
Well, not only no Ben Roethlisberger, he's a free agent again because remember, he just signed that one-year deal to stay in Pittsburgh. But really, to me, it doesn't matter with JuJu Smith-Schuster because, look, I don't know him personally, and I'm not knocking JuJu. JuJu can live his life however he wants. I respect that. But it doesn't seem to me, from the outside looking in, that JuJu Smith-Schuster is all in when it comes to football. It looks like football is there, he's good at it, and he can skate by on his talent. And that's fine, right? That's fine. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he is all in. But I just don't get that impression from what I've seen. So JuJu, not a guy that really gets me excited in any way, whether he stays in Pittsburgh, whether he leaves Pittsburgh to sign somewhere else. I'm sure he's going to sign somewhere where he doesn't have to be the guy. So I'm probably not going to be in on JuJu next season.
You know what? I'm kind of, well, let's put this. I'm okay with JuJu for what he is because I think everyone has accepted what he is, and it's not a stud wide receiver like we thought he might be. Right after his second season, people are predicting him to be one of the best young receivers for years to come, and he just hasn't. I think he settled into kind of mediocrity. Based on his talent, he could be better. You're not the only one who thinks that he's skating by, and I think based on the injuries and the fact that he's almost surely going to come back to Pittsburgh, right? I know he's a free agent, but he's already said he loves Pittsburgh, wants to stay in Pittsburgh. He could have been somewhere else last year. I mean, he stayed in Pittsburgh. If he is what he is, and he's going to be valued as kind of a late third or fourth receiver, and I can get him in the middle of the draft, why not? Because at least he can show up and catch a few passes and, be kind of a safety valve for me. So I don't expect too much. I don't think he expects too much out of himself. And I think that nobody expects too much from him. So I think I'm okay just accepting what he is. All right, and then let's end with one running back, and that's Chris Carson, guy who missed almost the entire season. Could have been a career-threatening injury there with his neck, but it seems like he's good to go for next year. Do you think Chris Carson can come back to be what he was? Because Rashad Penny, on the one hand, looked amazing at the end of the season, but on the other hand, he's also a free agent.
I don't know if Chris Carson can get back to what he was because I am a little nervous about any neck injury. But I kind of like Chris Carson next year when it comes to drafts because he's being drafted far after Rashad Penny right now, at least in all the mocks we've done. He's gone much later than Rashad Penny. I think I got him in the 8th round of our endgame mock. So I'll take a chance on Chris Carson in the 8th round. I don't need him to be, 15 plus fantasy point Chris Carson every week. I need him to be serviceable, flex, RB2 type with some decent upside if he does get back to being the old Chris Carson. And I think in the 8th round, 7th round, where he's probably going to go in a lot of drafts, that's worth the risk. So I don't necessarily feel great about it because it's the neck, and the neck is always scary, especially in football. But I'm willing to take the risk if his ADP is going to be that low.
It is. I think it's going to stay that low. Again, people are tired of the constant injuries. It's always a risk. How many injuries, or how many running backs don't have injury risk? Tell me that. Rashad Penny, like you said, is going to shoot up boards, and I get it because I'm kind of on the Penny train too, but how many games has he played or is supposed to miss? So it's like we can pretend that all of a sudden he's a safer bet. You know what? If he signs somewhere else, Carson's going to be the guy in Seattle. He's going to have one of the biggest team market shares of carries out of any running back out there probably because they don't really have much behind him if Penny goes somewhere else. So yeah, I will definitely take him at where he's going to be valued. No one will be taking him as a top 20 running back. I guarantee that. So I'm kind of in on Carson making a comeback. All right, so those are some of our comeback player options. We're going to see who out of this list is going to help you win your league next year. We're going to cover all offseason long the news that you need to know to help you win, helping you crush your draft in 2022. All right, thanks for watching.